food produce from Ghana cannot be exported out of the country until further notice. According to Deputy Minister in charge of Agriculture, Yao Frimpong Addo, this is part of a number of measures to tackle the hiking food prices and also to ensure food security. The minister had earlier assured of stability of prices of foodstuffs latest by September, adding that there will be more supply of goods and produce which will help settle the upsurge in prices. The latest development on a seeming ban on the export of local foods is unsettling a lot of local producers. And thankfully, we're going to be joined by the Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture, Yao Frimpong Addo. He will be explaining to us exactly why this decision has become necessary and what the impact could be on the food prices that we have in Ghana, because we know that these concerns have been raised in the last few weeks by the associations, the Peasant Farmers Association, the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union, for example, and many other interested parties, including also the former President John Mahama. We'll be speaking to some individuals on the latest decision by the ministry, and so once we're able to have that conversation with the officials, we'll get them to explain to us exactly why this decision has become necessary. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kare. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
This concern about seeming food price hikes coupled with shortages in some of the inputs that should get us farmers on the ground has necessitated this conversation we're about to have. But the minister has said that they're banning export of food. How do you react to it as an association?
Well, let me say good afternoon to you, and then good afternoon to the general agricultural workers throughout the country. The question one will ask is, we are told that there's no food crisis. So why then the ban? It is an admission of the fact of what all along we've been saying, that there's no food available.
Okay.
If there's food available, why do you ban the export?
Well, the conversation around this, and according to the Deputy Minister, because of the price hikes that we have, there's some artificial shortages in some areas in the country, and that has been partly blamed for what we see. That's why they're taking this decision.
Well, as a country, we reserve the right to take certain decisions, such as either stopping imports or stopping exports. But whenever we are taking those decisions, we must take them cognizance of what we want them to achieve.
Right.
If simply banning exports of food in Ghana will make food available in this country, then of course we can do that. But you see, you have to look at your problem. You have to look at the agricultural sector. What has been the problem that has led us to where we are? So that you look at whether this particular measure that government is taking is a viable one. There are structural challenges with our agricultural system.
Okay.
They are just policy failures with our agricultural system.
Okay. I'll come back to you. Hold on for me, Mr. Kawe. Let me speak to the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana. CEO Anthony Morrison is joining me. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. You've been observing the landscape in the last few weeks and months. Do you get the sense that there is a challenge with food produce and supply, for which reason a ban like this will be necessary at all in the first place?
Thank you very much, and very good afternoon to your viewers, and my very good brother in the studio, Edward. I think I agree perfectly with Edward, and I agree perfectly with your statement. Yes, of course, there are very endemic problems within the food production system in Ghana. Many others, if we want to start enumerating them, maybe we'll go and sleep and come back, and we're still not done with it. Yes, where the minister is coming from, I think I agree with him, but I think that as a ministry, they have failed to be proactive. If you do remember on the show last year, that was around 2020 October, the chamber brought out some intelligence that we have done and we called for an emergency situation to be put together. We made mention of the fact that there were seemingly food shortages and price increases that were going to affect for the next 6 to 12 months if some strategies were not put in place.
Okay.
And we came up in May, early this year, to also ask the government to put a ban on all food exports, especially along the borderlines. The minister came out to say the farmers are making good money out of the exports. We found out that most of the warehouses that have sprung up over the past 6 years, majority of them are located just about a few kilometers away from the border towns. And a lot of food produce are being stored there, already hauling, or people are just having some free day. They keep this produce there and they bring it back into the country at a very exorbitant price. For instance, just 6 months ago, we used to buy 50 kg bag of maize at 58 Ghana cedis. 6 months down the line, we are buying at 150 Ghana cedis. What will account for such gargantuan increase in food price, especially on the side of maize? And that notwithstanding, the failure of the ministry to be very proactive with regards to the farming season.
Okay.
As at the time the farming season came in, there were no enough fertilizers, there were no enough seeds, and in addition to that, the climate change wasn't very favorable to us. So we think to a large extent,
okay,
the ministry has not been very
proactive
with exactly.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morrison. I'll have you hold on for me briefly. We're glad to be joined on the line by the Deputy Minister in charge of Food and Agriculture, Mr. Frimpong. Thank you, Mr. Frimpong. Now, what are the factors that you considered as a ministry to institute a ban like this? This ban, as you have heard there, I'm sure, by the industry players, is not necessary at this time, and it's an admission that, in fact, there is a challenge of food production in the country as we have it now.
Yeah, thank you very much, and greetings to the listeners and viewers. If you have your children at home and you have a quantity of food to feed them, the food is not sufficient, and you want to give some to other children outside, what will happen to your children? You see, let us not overstretch this issue. We all know the challenges that we've gone through as a result of COVID-19 and the production challenges that we have as a result of some drought last year, fertilizer supply shortages and all that.
Okay.
And the little that we have here, we want to preserve so that within these hard times, the planting season every year has been quite hard times for this country all the time. And therefore, the ministry thought right. The minister said, look, we should not allow these things to go because we may run into some difficulties. So in stopping the exportation of these food items, not all food items, but this particular food items, the grains, just to save the situation. Now, our poultry farmers are complaining that there is no food for their poultry. And if we institute this measure to control it, and if somebody is misconstruing or just saying that it's not necessary, then I don't get it. We are managing the situation.
Okay.
And in managing the situation, there are several tools that we use to manage the situation. And one of the tools is what we have done, and it is working.
Mr. Frimpong, I want to know how long this ban is for. Is it an indefinite ban, for example? And have you considered also the impact it could have on, agitations between farmers and those who supply food produce to neighboring countries?
We considered all these variables and came to that conclusion. You see, the decision that we took, we considered several variables, and we are saying that it is to resolve a situation at a particular point in time. And this year, God being so good, we've had good rains. In spite of the shortfall in the supply of fertilizers, our seed supply, we didn't have any problem with it. Improved seeds, we didn't have problems with it. It's fertilizer that we have some challenges. But even significantly, the situation has improved. And because of that, and with the good rains, they're going to have good harvest.
Okay.
The buffer stock is also positioning itself in a way that because we have made available over 80 of the warehouses, in addition to their storage facilities that they already had, we are going to have good harvest. They are going to be stored so that next year, when we have in abundance, when we still keep the doors shut, then we can enable this to also do some exports to make money. Because the farmers, we also have to consider the farmers, because when prices go up, it is to the benefit of the farmers. So we need to balance this thing carefully so that we will not create some kind of discomfort for our farmers. So if anybody talks about these issues, we should look at all the variables to come out with good conclusions.
Okay, Mr. Frimpong, before I let you go, there's also the concern about the smuggling of fertilizers. And if you as a ministry has been able to consider these factors you speak about to put in place such a measure to deal with, the export of products so that the country can have enough supply of products, have you also been able to deal with the smuggling of fertilizer, which is one of the biggest issues for farmers across the country's borders, for example?
Especially in the northern sector. We're working together with the national security and all other institutions that we should police our borders. And the ministry is also coming out with some other measures so that the fertilizers will go directly to the farmers. There are several things that we put in place, but this year we've learned a lot of lessons from these happenings, and we are in the process of correcting those things so that next year they will not get smuggling. In bits and pieces, maybe we cannot stop it completely altogether, but in those large quantities, it's something that the ministry is working seriously with the security agencies to avoid the rate at which the fertilizers were smuggled out of this country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yaw Frimpong. There is a Deputy Minister in charge of Food and Agriculture. Mr. Kara, I saw you nodding while he was making the points. You do not feel satisfied by the positions and the explanations he has given?
Yes, he has talked about many warehouses have now been made available, and for that matter, buffer stock has been mandated to now go and buy food and stock. They have not told us that the shortage of the food in the system now has been as a result of our inability to store it. They have not said that the buffer stock company was not able to deliver on its mandate as a result of lack of warehouses.
Yeah, to store.
So if you build warehouses now, it doesn't solve that problem.
Okay.
Because if it is not a problem, it doesn't become a solution. And the other thing is about, you need to preserve food. They have to also be very careful because they can spark a trade war.
Okay.
In the
so how should they manage this period as they've spoken about the ban?
Because you've asked him how long will this ban be? I don't think I've got the answer.
Well, but he doesn't say whether it's
yes. So he should tell us. If it is for 2 months, tell us. If it is for up to the end of the year, tell us.
Okay.
Because these are things that when you don't know the end of a policy, when you don't know the limits of a policy, then it allows them to come and say something again.
Okay.
Let all of us be together regarding the policy. Okay. But what I'm just looking at is that, one, you can see that exports of those main cereals have been declining. The figures suggest that there's a decline in maize exports for 2020.
Okay.
And then the question about COVID and the rest, it never happened. COVID has never been as a factor because despite COVID, we had over 100% increase in food.
All right, Mr. Perry, I appreciate that you made time to join me in the studio. I'm sure we'll be having a lot more on this conversation. Mr. Morrison, wrap up for me. The minister or the deputy minister you heard there has given the reasons why they're taking these interventions. Clearly, they didn't listen to your proposals and your advice when you made it a couple of months ago. What will be your expectation going forward to prevent, as Mr. Kari has said, a trade war?
Yes, thank you very much. And let me, though I agree perfectly with my brother, the minister, I think that, first of all, some stopgap measures like this at some critical times don't need to be announced. in that we live in a global world. The South region, we are almost like brothers. We depend on each other for food. So some of these things can be done subtly without announcing it, because it can escalate. Because as we speak, people are not even able to bring tomatoes from Burkina Faso, onion, and some other commodities. So we are beginning to see some of the challenges there. Now, what you would have expected the ministry to do is to set up the National Food Preparedness and Food Security Committee at various districts, okay? Because at the borderlines where these produce are being exited out of the country, you need to first of all look at documentations. Why are you exporting this? For what purpose? And who is giving the approval? All these things are not being done. I mean, indiscriminately, food items are being exported without any necessary documentation and approval.
Okay.
So we need, MOFA need to sit up. Then again, you see, this is trade. The issue of this is trade regulations. MOFA has outlived its role of playing a trade regulatory measures within the agriculture sector. It is for this reason the Chamber has always called for the setting up of the Ghana Agriculture Regulatory Authority that will come in there on the field and be able to be more proactive, just like the MPA and the NCA are doing.
Okay.
You see, MOFA takes it takes MOFA so long, too long, sometimes needless, timeless spending to come up with some of these measures. We have been calling for some of these things about a year ago. If government has been more proactive, I think we shouldn't be in this mess.
Thank you very much, Anthony Morrison. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Agribusiness. Speaking to us also in studio was Dr. Edward Carey. I appreciate that he could join me. He's from Gov't. But this conversation will continue subsequently. We will understand exactly what the impact of this ban will be on the farmers and the production of food and food sufficiency across the country subsequently.